What's up? It's episode 6 of the AskJV show. Today we're talking about gain staging, mixing on headphones, and bass drums. Alright, welcome back to the show. Sorry it's been a couple weeks since the last episode. We took a break while I was launching version 2 of my hardcore mixing online course. That went very well. Great response. If you're on my email list, you probably were following along with that and all the free videos that I put out. If you joined the course, that's awesome. I'm looking forward to interacting with you in there. We had over 100 new course members join up. It was absolutely awesome, but I'm pumped to get back to answering questions here, so let's get right into it.
3, 2, 1.
This is the AskJV Show.
Our first question comes from Albert. What do you do once you get your tracks imported? How do you prep for this? I've seen a few people out there use this technique so they can utilize working in the box better. Once you import your stems, put all the tracks on the peak meter. Let them play all the way through. Take note of the highest peak on each track. Once you have this number, use a trim plugin to get them all to negative 18 dB.
All right, I've been getting this question or some variation of it a lot lately, and basically my answer is don't worry about it too much. I think people are getting way too caught up in this just because of some info that's floating around online out there. Lots of people telling you that you need to bring down your the audio level to a certain point, in this case minus 18 or whatever, before hitting any plugins. This is just, it doesn't make any sense to me. First of all, you hear this from people online, but you don't actually hear the people who are making the plugins. They're not telling you to do this. So that's one thing, and it just makes no sense. Why would they be programming these plugins to make you take that extra step and make it get down to a certain analog level before you use the plugin? It just, when you think about it, just really doesn't make sense. So I think people get way too worried about this. They spend a lot of time worrying that their levels are right. Essentially, when it comes to gain staging in the box, you just need to make sure that you're not clipping your plugins everywhere and that you're not clipping your mix bus. There's tons of headroom in the box. Essentially when I record, I usually try to shoot for, right where the yellow section of the Pro Tools meter is hitting. Same thing with mixing. And if the tracks are hot, I bring it down a little bit so there's headroom in the plugin. I don't want it to be clipping. Other than that, I'm not spending time, adjusting things and getting it down to X dB before I start mixing. I think that's a distraction, and it's something that people are really allowing to get in the way of them actually mixing creatively. And it's just a distraction. Don't worry about it. Make sure you have some headroom, but that's it.
Our next question comes from Victor. Do you use headphones as a secondary reference? How else do you check your mixes on other systems? What are the pros and cons of using multiple reference systems?
I never used to use headphones really as a reference, just very rarely. But I had a nicely treated little project studio and a couple pairs of monitors, so I didn't really need headphones. Ever since I moved home now, or moved my mixing rig home, I should say, and I just have a small mix room here at home. I only have my NS10s. I do use headphones occasionally to mix and to check on, but I definitely, like you said, use it as a secondary reference. I find it difficult to mix mainly on headphones. Very fatiguing, and it's just, the balance is just different. It's hard to judge it. So that's kind of the extent that I use headphones now, mostly to kind of judge the extended low end, since my NS10s are not really giving me that. I can throw on my headphones to check that. In terms of having secondary monitors or headphones to check your mix, absolutely it's useful. It helps to give you another perspective, and sometimes just switching to a different speaker or whatever really just is an instant light bulb and say, oh, this sounds weird here. My favorite thing is to check it in the car. For most of us, we've spent so many hours in our cars listening to music that we just instinctively know what a good mix sounds like in our car. So for me, even though I'm mixing on NS10s mostly here in a small room, once I finish my mix, I take it out in my car, and within 10 seconds, I know if the low end is right, and I can just come back here and adjust it and then go check it again. So definitely, ultimately, what's more important than what speakers and what headphones you're using, the most important thing is that you know it really well. So if that's your iPod headphones and you know what something is supposed to sound like instinctively on iPod headphones, use that as your secondary reference. For me, it's a car. For other people, it could be anything else. But yeah, checking your mixes on different speakers and different reference points is definitely an essential part of mixing.
Our last question comes from Reginald. Just wanted to know your opinion on bass drums. What bass drums do you think fits hardcore and metal the most? Any brand and model in mind? I know you like metallic snares like the Black Beauty, but what about kick drums? I'm just having a hard time about them.
I've never been much of a gear nerd when it comes to drums, so I'm not going to be able to throw out, specific info about brands or wood types or anything like that, but I have found that I tend to prefer kick drums on the smaller end. So I find a lot of kind of younger, more inexperienced drummers, they'll come in with these really big kick drums, like 24 inches deep and more even sometimes. And those are just, for one thing, really hard to play. So especially for heavier music like metal, hardcore, where there's lots of double kick, it really affects their playing because it's hard to play fast and punchy on a kick drum that big. You're just moving so much air, and they also don't sound that great. I find it's just less definition, less punch. I like the smaller kick drums, maybe 20 or even 18 inches deep or so, give you still lots of low end, like plenty enough that you need, but easier to play for the drummer, and also just punchier and just a tighter sound in general. So that's kind of my basic advice. Like, try to stay away from the really big overblown kick drums. You'll get a nice controlled sound from something a little smaller, a little shallower. All right, thanks for tuning in again. That's it for this episode. Looking forward to catching up on all the questions. Looks like we got a lot of good ones from from over the break that we just took. As always, please leave a comment, a like, leave a review on the iTunes podcast if you're listening like that. Really appreciate that. And if you want to grab my free mixing cheat sheet and get on my email list where I send out all of my best content, just click the link below in the description here and submit your questions to get on the show at AskJVPod.com. All right, thank you. I will see you on the next episode.